Hi folks, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. So by now there's pretty broad agreement that the next level of performance from LLMs is going to come by stringing them together into agentic systems. Or at least that's what everybody is trying to do. And I've been looking for real world unusual use cases for agentic systems, and I found this paper which was published just a couple of days before I'm recording this. And here the authors have built an LLM agent system for competitive debating. And the paper has two big contributions. The first one, of course, is to create an agent system that can perform this task of competitive debating, by which they mean it should be able to output the script for a competitive debate given a topic for a motion. And then the second big contribution is to evaluate the performance of this framework. The way they frame this problem is to follow the rules of a standard debate where you're given a motion, which is the topic that you're debating, one team for, one team against, and it is broken up into three stages. The debate is typically broken up into three stages. In the first stage, each team presents constructive arguments for their position. Then they each get to rebut the other team's positions. And finally, they close by presenting summary statements. The thing to note over here is that only in stage 2 do you get to see the other team's arguments. So how would one go about designing agents to solve this problem? The authors in this paper have broken down this problem into 4 distinct agents: a searcher agent, an analyzer, a writer, and a reviewer. And each of these agents is invoked for each of these stages in the debate that we just saw. Now, as they say in the paper, the way they came up with this breakdown was by mimicking what a human debater typically does. So these are the phases that a human debater would follow. So let's look at the first agent, the searcher agent. Its job is to go and find out facts and information about the debating topic. And this is where it can look up external knowledge bases, it can do web searches, and you would typically think of this as basically the retrieval agent. One of the jobs it does is taking questions and refining them into queries against these data stores. The next agent in the sequence is the analyzer agent, and this is the one that takes in a lot of raw information and provides guidance or a strategy for what to do next. The one important thing it does is take in real-time information from the debate, which is to say, when you first find out about the other team's arguments in the opening, the analyzer agent looks at the content of the debate, breaks it down, makes outlines, and then provides strategy and guidance for how to proceed in the debate. And then you have the third agent in the chain, which is the writer agent. This is the one that actually produces the content of the debate. It takes the output of the analyzer agent and synthesizes a draft for the next stage of the debate. And then finally, you have the reviewer or the critic agent. So this is a step that's pretty common to most agentic systems, which is to have some kind of a reviewer or critic or verifier, which looks at the work output of all the agents up to that point in the chain and provides feedback for how to improve that content. And that's exactly what the reviewer agent does. But its feedback is tailored to the stage of the debate you're in. So if you're trying to produce an opening statement, you're looking for completeness, consistency in your argument, making sure you have the right supporting evidence, and so on. If you're in stage 2, which is where you've seen your opponent's arguments and you're trying to rebut them, you've got to then focus on if there are any weaknesses in your opponent's argument. And finally, in stage 3, which is where you present closing arguments, you have to take in everything from the previous 2 stages and both reinforce your arguments as well as rebut the rebuttal. And as you can see in this diagram over here, the reviewer can give this feedback back to the writer to revise the content of the debate. Alright, so that seems to be a reasonable setup for an agentic system for competitive debate. Now, how do you evaluate it? How do you know if it's any good? And that's the second big contribution of this paper, which is constructing a system for evaluating this. So their baseline system for comparison is using a web search engine with a good frontier model without any agentic behavior, it seems. So that's the baseline. And then to evaluate, they have 2 sets of evaluators. They have human evaluators. They found 10 experienced debaters. And they also have an LLM evaluator called Debatrix that is given a rubric for evaluating debate scripts and comes back with a score. And so they come up with 20 debates across 5 different topics, and to make it fair, they balance out how many times each system takes the pro and con side of the argument. And then they give this both to human evaluators as well as the Debatrix system that uses LLM critiquing. Now, the very first result is to compare their agentic system against the baseline, which is an LLM without any agentic behavior. So it's not surprising to see that the agentic system, which does much more work, easily beats the baseline non-agentic system. Then if we look at how the agentic system performs based on evals, if you look at the Debatrix eval, the agentic system easily beats humans. This is a kind of ELO ranking that is calculated off of wins and losses. And you can see that Gemini 1.5 Pro and Claude 3.5 Sonnet are nearly neck and neck, with Gemini being slightly better. The very interesting thing here is that the Gemini 1.5 Flash model is almost as good as the top scorer, but it is much, much cheaper than these large models like 1.5 Pro and 3.5 Sonnet. So that was the result of the Debatrix LLM-based eval. If you look at the human evals, they tell a similar story. The agentic systems based on the 3 big frontier models end up beating humans, but by a smaller margin than we saw in the Debatrix ELO rankings. And even here, Gemini 1.5 Flash is just narrowly behind human performance. So that was a quick look at an LLM-based agentic system for competitive debating. And in their evals, it looks like it beats human debaters. Now, before I wrap up, I quickly want to point out the paper has a link to their GitHub repo, which has all the prompts for these various stages of the debate. So, for example, here's the prompt for the analyzer for the opening argument stage. And here's the prompt for the writer for the opening argument stage. And they have prompts for the rebuttal stage and the summary stage as well. Now, it's good to have the prompts, but I can't really find any code that ties them together in that there doesn't seem to be any Python code in here that actually constructs the agents with these prompts. and then orchestrates them to actually run a debate given a topic. But it's good to have access to the prompts nonetheless. I'll leave links to all this down in the description. I hope you enjoyed that. If you like content like this, please consider subscribing, like the video, and I will see you all next time. Thank you very much.